Hello?
Joe, welcome in, Joe. You're talking to Richard and Justin on AXP. How you doing?
Doing good. How about you guys?
Can't complain.
Very well. Very well, thank you. What have you got for us, Joe?
So I'm an atheist, and after listening to the show, I've learned to kind of converse a little bit with people of different denominations. The biggest one is the unfalsifiable proposition, kind of, and I had these Jehovah's Witnesses come to my house, and I totally blew it on the interview. So when you are trying to converse with people of different denominations, different denominations have their own little thing. I was a worship leader way back in the day for Presbyterians, and it seemed like every denomination has their own thing. How specifically do you talk to get specific information out of them without actually asking, without almost being antagonistic?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Jehovah's Witnesses, actually, because not this year, but last year, Jamie the Blind Limey came over from the States to visit me in the town in which I live, and we went out and we had a couple of drinks and something to eat, and we happened to see some Jehovah's Witnesses on the street, and we'd had perhaps one or two whiskeys by this point in the proceedings, and we thought it might be a jolly good idea to go and have a conversation with them. Regarding Jehovah's Witnesses in particular, my line of questioning is always, why are you taking the Lord's name in vain? Because the name Jehovah is, I think it's a 10th century scribal error. And what it does is it mixes the tetragrammaton, which is YHWH, up with the word Adonai, which means my Lord. And it is quite literally, it was transcribed and it was incorrectly transcribed. The vowels from Adonai were placed in the tetragrammaton, and that gave you Jehovah. And that's where the name comes from. So that's always my leading point with Jehovah's Witnesses in particular. And watch them squirm when you do that. That's all. And then Jamie the Blind Limey will verify this. We actually, during the conversation, we actually apologized to them and said we were going to leave them alone, because it got to the point where it felt like we were bullying them a little bit, because they literally started stuttering at us. And I'm all about friendly conversations. I don't want people to feel uncomfortable when I'm having those conversations. So there does come a point, I think, you've got to gauge your audience, regardless of who you're talking to. You need to gauge your audience. And, I have had many, many hundreds, if not thousands, of these conversations over the years. And I'm pretty good now at picking out people who are kind of experienced, people who want genuine conversations. And there are a lot of them out there. There really, really are. People who want to try and throw gotchas at you. Apologists, all that. There's so many different kinds of people within so many different denominations or so many religious groups. And it really is a case of learn from experience, I think. People can throw tips at you and people can throw tricks at you, but the best way to have a conversation with people of different denominations, different religious groups, is to just go out there and do it. Have those conversations, try and make them friendly, try not to be combative with them, and just learn from having the conversations. Pick up on the psychological cues you get from people, pick up on the body language cues if it's in real life, and introspect. Really think about what you're saying. Really try and not to misrepresent stuff. I have so many arguments with atheists who throw bad arguments out there, bad philosophical points out there. Believe it or not, I probably argue with atheists on philosophy much more than I do with theists. Introspect. Look at what you're doing yourself. Make sure you're using the right information. And if you're not, correct yourself. And if somebody gives you information, if somebody corrects you and it turns out they're right, be humble and thank them and learn from that. And it is a process. It's a process. Having these conversations, I think, is a process of refining your skill at doing it, looking at the subtleties rather than the kind of black and white points, really delving into the subtleties. And I think that's where the successes come, when you can do that.
Okay, so you're like, 'cause I think what I did is they had a claim, that claim came from the Bible, and I kind of validated the claim, but then just ended with like, I don't know. And I think I should have dived more into what their claim was saying in the process of their own interpretation of the Bible. So are you just saying like how is this claim, would you ask like, how is this claim different than maybe somebody else? Because I almost want to say like, how are they differentiated from other denominations? So would it be fair to say like, how does this claim differentiate you from like a Pentecostal that takes this claim that's saying if they like speak in tongues then this means this?
I can't answer that. I can't answer that because I think you've got to take every conversation on its own merits. And I don't think it's as easy. And this is what I was talking about, like differentiating the subtle stuff from the black and white stuff. I don't think it's as easy as just saying, right, you go into all of these conversations with this game plan. Because I don't think you can do that. It depends. You know, you might talk to one Southern Baptist who is completely different to a different Southern Baptist and has a completely different interpretation of biblical verses. They might be a much kinder person than the other person who's a Southern Baptist. That will also affect how the conversation goes. I know it's not helpful to say, I don't know, but I think in this, it is a case of going with a kind of openness to have these, and don't be afraid of saying I don't know. If somebody, I'm not a biblical scholar. My background is in largely Buddhism, a little bit of Islam, and I'm very new to looking at the biblical stuff. So people very often throw stuff I don't understand out of the Bible at me, and I have to say, look, I don't know. I'll go and have a look at that and I'll come back to you on it. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. Not having all the answers straight away is not a failure by any stretch of the imagination, and being willing to say, I don't know, I'll go and have a look and I'll come back to you with my opinion on that is a much stronger and more earnest way of conversing with people than just trying to throw answers that you don't necessarily have in there.
You know what? I think that's what I probably should have done, because based off of what you're saying, I was talking to an individual and not the religion. So he might have had like a different immediate interpretation of what that claim was versus maybe of their overall religion is what I probably should have honed in on. And then saying, please come back after I examine this.
Justin, you're the Bible guy. Well, how would you handle that situation?
Well, so I actually really agree with what Richard was saying. If someone is bringing up a Bible claim and you're not really intimate with what the Bible says, it's okay to be like, hey, I need to look into that. Let's put a pin in this for now and let's look at it later. Because what you don't want to do is make an argument from the Bible and then be wrong about what it says, because then all your future conversations are going to be clouded by the fact that you said something about the Bible that was wrong and they no longer trust you, right? So like, I'm comfortable making biblical arguments because that was my expertise. That was my field of training, right? But if you're not comfortable with it, and there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, let's look into it and we'll get back to you, right? Or if you've got plenty of time, let them really walk through the passage with you and make their best case argument, and then say, okay, you've made your best case argument. Let me look into it, and then we'll finish this up later. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like when people make arguments for me, like from other religions, like that I'm not familiar with, sometimes I have to be like, okay, well, I don't know. That's not my field, right?
Oh, no, that's perfect, guys. Thank you.
Sure thing.
The next time they come back, that's exactly what I'm going to say, so they keep coming back because I want to like, have a deep conversation. But when they make something very specific to a realm that I don't really know, I'm just like, I don't want to sound like an idiot where they have that, those gotcha things or something where you can actually have a discourse of what they're actually trying to talk about.
Yeah, for sure.
It's very important, I think, to have that ability to just say, I don't know. When I've been in this sphere many, many years, and the amount of time people have tried arguing evolution with me, and I just have to hold my hands up and say, look, I'm bad at biology. I don't know. I can't argue evolution with anyone because it's not my field of study. I just can't do it. And, people can take that how they want. They can see it as a victory. Some people do see it as a victory. And, if you think that's a win, that somebody admits that they don't know something, well, good on you. Let's hope you don't get asked questions at the pearly gates. That's all I can say on that score. But yeah, do it. Just go out and have the conversations, and you'll get better at them with time.
Cool. Thank you, guys. I have only like one small ask of you guys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a amateur mathematician. I only took math up to like Calc 3, and with a friend who is a chemistry, physics PhD person, we've kind of been going through quantum mechanics, and I've been trying to teach myself partial differential equations. And I hear a lot of theists talking about quantum mechanics. Can you ask them one thing for me when they bring that up?
Possibly.
Can you ask them what God Hamiltonian they apply to their wave function to get a God eigenvalue?
I don't know what any of that means. And based on the advice that I gave previously, I don't think it's good for me to ask questions that I don't even understand the question of.
Okay, but that's fair, guys. That's fair. It's just I spent years actually trying to understand it on a mathematical proposition, and when I hear the people talk about it, they go straight to conclusions without doing any of the dirty work. But
Sure.
Anyways, guys, thank you very much for the conversation, guys. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was great to hear from you.
All right.
All right. Cheers.
Bye.
I do feel like quantum physics for most people is like that box of stuff that nobody really understands unless you're a real professional. So it's easy to reach into that box and be like, well, what about this? And then no one else understands that either. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with this, right?
I've had to write about it recently, and it's been an education. Let's put it that way. I've refined the focus of what I was writing about from thinking it'd be cool to write about quantum physics in this, and then actually starting to look at what quantum physics is, and then realizing I don't have a clue. So I better refine a little bit what I'm saying there, so I don't look a complete idiot. Looking a bit of an idiot's fine. I do it every day, but complete idiot, that's right out.